Hello. Today I'm going to talk about a question someone has asked me. This is a question from an accountant. He's a chartered accountant. He's a finance professional and he has asked me this question. Is coding necessary for finance professional? It's a very good question actually. Many people have asked me this question over the last many years, especially people from non-technical background who are working in the field of finance. They often ask this question, whether coding actually is important for finance professional, right? I used to work at a company, over 12, 13 years back, which was just full of MBA finance and chartered accountants. And many of them were very interested to work in more technical side of finance, doing data analysis, doing, building models. And they were really interested in coding back then, right? So I would like to, answer this question. Well, there's no straightforward answer to this question. If you're absolutely sure that you really want to remain as an accountant, an auditor, you want to be more of a front office, business guy, then there's no need to actually learn coding. I mean, there's nothing wrong actually learning a bit of coding, at least the basics of coding. But if you're in more commercial roles, right? You're a front office guy. You are someone who is talking to customers. Then you absolutely don't need coding, right? But for most other jobs, right, whether you work in IT as a business analyst, as a developer, you work as a quant, you work as um, in compliance, risk management, you work in an asset management firm, trading firm. In most roles in the field of finance, you will do some sort of data analysis, right? In some areas, it will be full of data analysis, full of coding. For example, in quant areas, but even in areas such as, for example, in audit or in compliance, which are less technical, less quantitative in many ways, you will still be using some coding, right? Not in all places, but in some places you might use some coding. So there is nothing wrong in learning some coding. Now, in my view, there are two types of coding. One is something that you learn to develop a software, a full-fledged software, end to end. So that's software engineering level coding. And the other one is learning coding to do data analysis. Well, you can do data analysis using Excel sheet as well, but you can enhance your data analysis by using Python or R or MATLAB. Uh, so the software engineering level coding is actually more difficult, and it requires some sort of an engineering mindset. I'm not discouraging you. I know people who come from liberal arts background, from non-technical background, who are amazing software engineers. But in order to work in finance, you don't need software engineering level coding. You know, even in quantitative finance, for most quant jobs, all you need to know is whether you are able to do data analysis, whether you are able to write some algorithm using whatever coding language I mean, the end result of your code is not going to be a full-fledged software. Software engineering is a lot different than just writing a piece of code to get something done. Doing some mathematical calculation, doing some data analysis, plotting graphs and charts, or building some models using writing code for that. That's quite different from building a full-fledged software where you have to you have to think about design principles, you have to think about scalability, a lot of other things, right? So that's more difficult, lot more difficult. And for non-technical people coming from non-technical background, it can be very challenging. It's quite possible though, it's not rocket science in my view. If you have genuine interest, you can also learn software engineering level coding, but for most jobs in the field of finance, you don't need that level of coding. But the data analysis coding is much easier to learn, right? If you can learn how to use the most common libraries in Python, whether it's pandas or NumPy, Matplotlib, and some of the modeling libraries like stats model, SciPy, and whatever packages you have, then you have good enough knowledge to work in various areas of finance, right? And in some areas you probably need bit more than that. For example, you may need object oriented programming. Even in quantitative side, you have to know object oriented programming, um, and that's something that use in software engineering, but that's also not very difficult to learn, right? But rarely you will work in the field of finance where you have to know software engineering level coding, like how to build a database, having skills in back end development, front end development, unless you work as a software engineer in finance, which is a different profile. In most other jobs you will not be doing that level of coding. So to answer your question, yes, it does help a bit. If you learn a bit of coding, I think it really enhances your profile as a professional in finance. Well, finance is very broad. Again, I would like to reiterate that if you are more in commercial roles, you are a venture capital guy, you are a private equity guy, you are an investment banker, you are a consultant working for large banks, you're talking to clients, you do not need much of coding. But let me also tell you that there are people from front office who later on move to back office and middle office, or risk management roles, such roles, and then they have to sort of learn some coding. And I actually know some people doing that. People who were shaking hands with other bankers, or CEOs from large companies. At some point in their career, the career got stagnated, and they had to sort of move back to middle office roles. And for many middle office roles, the work would be a bit more technical, and there you need knowledge of SQL and Python, Excel, VBA, for example, and they have to learn these languages. And if you're a smart guy, it's not a big deal. If you spend a couple of weeks time, it's quite easy to learn the basics of coding. You can start with the VBA or Python. These are easier to learn. I mean, if you start with C or C++, for someone with a non-technical background, it can be challenging. But more the high-level programming, which is Python or MATLAB or VBA, I think it's relatively easier to learn. Okay, but let me conclude that having coding skills will enhance your CV in various areas. Even if you're an MBA finance guy or a chartered accountant working in non-technical areas, if you know some coding, actually, you will have better chances in some of the finance jobs, especially the technical finance jobs. Okay, any questions? Let me know in the comment section. Thanks.